Okay, good afternoon. My name is Jesse Galvan. We are discussing the walkthrough form and teacher observation. Today is June 9th, 2022. It is 6:52 p.m. And with me, I have Mr. Darian Laurie, Assistant Principal of Instruction, and Miss Alyssa Oliveira, also a Principal of Instruction, both for Idea Public Schools. Miss Oliveira, can you go ahead and give me a brief introduction of what you do and who you are?
Absolutely. So like Mr. Galvan said, my name is Alyssa Oliveira. I'm an assistant principal of instruction for Idea Public Schools. Currently, I'm managing teachers in the K through 2 setting, a lot of direct instruction, a lot of basic standards, introduction to TEKS for students. This is my 6th year with Idea, my 2nd year as an assistant principal.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mr. Laurie, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Darian Laurie. I'm also an assistant principal of instruction, where I work in the college prep area, which is a 6 through 12, coaching teachers. And I've been doing this since 2018. And we do TEKS-led instruction and managing goals around those.
Excellent. Appreciate you, Mr. Laurie. So what we're going to do is, as per our agenda, we're going to have a brief discussion as to the importance of a walkthrough form and teacher observation. So feel free to share your thoughts, and go ahead and take me through your mindset as to, what your thoughts are as, the importance of a walkthrough. Mr. Laurie, can you go ahead and go first, please?
Yes, I will. I think the big part of having these walkthroughs is you get real feedback. And you're able to give the teachers knowledge that will empower them to make real improvements. This is why it's very important. You're able to see the goals, right? You're able to see if the lesson plan is actually aligning to what the expectations and goals of the classroom are. I think those two right there are the biggest things of why they're so important.
Thank you, Mr. Laurie. Ms. Oliveira, can you go ahead and discuss?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Laurie. Definitely, like, walkthrough is probably like one of the most pivotal parts of instructional coaching. I would say like the walkthrough with the observation forms in hand is something, it's a great tool, because everything that you're going in there to look for is, what are the kids learning? That's the whole goal. We want to see, what do the kids know? And us being that second set of eyes, and being able to collect the data, like, how are students answering? What are they missing? What's the misconception? And use that low inference data. We have a really strong data point to share with the teacher after the lesson, like, hey, this is what went well, and this is something that we can work on together. I can coach you through how to increase mastery, let's say, for students, or how to increase engagement depending on the look for of the observation.
Great. Excellent. Thank you for your input. Now, my next question is, what are we asking ourselves as administrator and leaders when we're observing these teachers? Ms. Oliveira, we can go ahead and start with you, please.
I think some of the things that we should always be asking ourselves during a walkthrough is like, what's the most recent data when it comes to an assessment, perhaps, or maybe like just regular daily exit ticket data. I think also knowing, like, we should be asking ourselves, like, who are the priority students in this class? So that way we have a strong look for, and then we should be asking ourselves, like, what's the objective for this lesson? So we should know, like, what is the teacher preparing? And I think as leaders, like, we should have some background knowledge, and also have unpacked the information that the teacher's going to deliver in their lesson.
Wonderful. And now, do you have this prior knowledge when you're walking into a class? Do you give the teacher a heads up, or how do you go about setting up these meetings? And do you or do you not give the teacher a heads up as to when you're going to come?
I think there's 2 ways to go around it. So there should always be prep work before going through a classroom walkthrough. And that is depending on your operating mechanisms. I know that before a walkthrough, I make sure that I have the teacher's lesson plan in hand. I open our tracking systems and I see what's the most recent data. And I look through the lesson plan to see, has the teacher unpacked this thoroughly enough? Do they know exactly what they're doing? Do they have timestamps? So yeah, there's preparation that is involved. And I would say if it's something that I'm looking for a current action step of a teacher, let's say I gave them feedback like, hey, your feedback is to make sure you have 100% of student engagement before you go into new material. In that case, I would prep the teacher like, I'm going to come by today at 1 o'clock, and these are the things I'm looking for. However, if it's just a walkthrough and I just want to see like, what are the kids learning? Are they grasping it? I think a walkthrough can be impromptu. Like, I have 30 minutes in my calendar. I really want to see how these students are learning. Let me just jump in and jot some quick notes, and I can share that with the teacher later.
Excellent. And has all this information been given to you, or is this something you picked up over the years?
I think it comes with the need. Me, I'm at a launching campus, brand new school. The need is high for prepping these things in advance. But coming from a previous campus I was at, this was around second nature to the teachers. They were very familiar with walkthroughs, observations. It was something that the data in the class would speak to you as like you'd walk in the room and there was a tracker on the wall with data posted. You could come in and see exactly how the kids were doing. So it's going to depend on your specific campus, how much prep time you need.
Great, excellent. And then Mr. Laurie, I'm going to ask you the same thing, and let me repeat the question. What questions are we asking ourselves as administrators and lead team when we're observing these teachers?
I think just to piggyback off of what was just said, especially for myself, the biggest thing, are their learning goals clear? Do we know, what we're learning? And I think that's a real easy when you just walk around the classroom and ask a student, we know where we're going. Do we know what's even being taught here and being learned here? And then I want to see if the teacher's confident in the material. And how does this lesson fit into either a larger sequence, or how has it been built up with previous knowledge that the students are getting to come to what we need to try to achieve in? And then we'll see if it's appropriate, or if we're scaffolding, whatever I kind of set out within what I want to see.
Okay, and for as a follow-up question, do you also give your teachers a sort of a heads up, or what system do you go through, or how do you pick teachers who you're going to be observing that day, or how do you go about that?
Well, it's kind of a two-part for me. One, I'd like to do an informal and formal. First, we're going to just do formal, right? Because I want a teacher not to be surprised when I come in. And I both want, it's like one of the big things with administration, with teachers, is we both need to make sure we're going to the same direction. I want to know, hey, what is your plan for this classroom? What goals, what kind of expectations do you have, including the academic and the behavior, right? So we're going to talk about that, come up with a plan together. So these are things that I'm going to look for when I come into, right? Later on down the year, when we've already been doing this, these things should already be ingrained in the teacher and in the classroom. So around October, these are very informal. I'll put it on my calendar, just have 3 things in my notebook with my operating mechanism. This is what I want to see. And I should be able to see that within the first 15 minutes of me being there. And then if I'm not kind of seeing that, and that's a case where I could just judge on what kind of teacher do I have? Do I need to give the teacher kind of leading question, leading feedback, what we call real-time feedback, in-time feedback, where I'm saying, hey, what about this? Because we've already talked about that, and cue the teacher to say, hey, let's get back on track. Let's kind of just go with expectations.
Okay, and how long are your observations? And then Ms. Olivia, I'm going to follow up with you. Same question. So, Mr. Laurie, how long are your observations when you do? How much time should you think I, as a future administrator, spend time in and per classroom?
So I really think it's all subjective to the teacher, right? I think that if we have the new teacher, I would add another to that. How long and how many times a week are we showing up? If this is a new teacher, you want to get in there at least 2 to 3 times a week, 15 to 20 minutes, not to overwhelm them, so they're like, oh, this principal, this school leader's always on me. But just in the fact that, you're making sure, because they're new to this, or a struggling teacher, we might want to, hey, set some goals, redirect the classroom, or reset norms. And we're going to want to see this on a consistent basis. Once you have a teacher that that's been getting the data, They're there. They're one of your master teachers. You don't even need to see them weekly. It's more of an every 2 week time. And I'm only in there 5 minutes just to show my face, just say, hey, we still need to just make sure, like even LeBron James as a coach. So we're in there for a little bit, 5 minutes. I see what I need to see. And I use that low inference data to bring other teachers that are struggling. Hey, come here for 5 minutes, watch this. Do you see how this classroom is controlled? And then we move out and I'm asking them, hey, what did you learn from there? Give me 2 takeaways real quick. So I think it's all relevant on where your teachers are at.
Appreciate that. And then Ms. Olivera, same follow-up question.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's going to be based, the number of observations and the amount of time spent is going to be based on like priority teachers. Like Mr. Lowry said, like you have those seasoned veteran teachers who just need like a little, like you check in, you go in, and there might be something you might want to just flag for real quick, like, hey, don't forget, but not a lot of coaching. I would say this year for my priority teachers, I like to schedule my observations in the AM. I like to see their first teach. That way, if there's anything that went wrong in the lesson or that could have been improved, I can give them that real-time coaching on the spot feedback and say like, hey, you're doing this great. Next period, let's work on cleaning this up. So I'll do that first thing in the morning. And then I let them know, hey, I'm going to come back to see the first 5 minutes of your next opening and do what we practiced. So like I said, priority teachers, they're going to get the majority of your time. And if I'm doing a full formal observation, I like to at least give myself 30 minutes in the class. 15, I put a timer on to observe the teacher collect the data. I like to use the next 5 to kind of just write out my steps. And then the last 10 to give the formal feedback in an email. So I'm not using the whole 30 minutes just watching the teacher. I'm strategically using my time in there to watch, write notes, and then send the teacher written feedback in an email or through our rating system.
Wonderful. And before we get to the roundtable discussion as to creating a new form, a walkthrough form, which you would, if you could, you would implement, where do you all get your observation forms and your walkthrough, your walkthrough forms? And I'll start with you, Mr. Laurie. Where do you get this information from?
See, I think it kind of all depends. In my case, you're going to get it from the org. The org is going to want to see, or is going to know what they want to see. What do they want to see, right? When the superintendent, the person running all the schools, this is what I should see in every classroom. So they're going to kind of lead that. Then you're going to have that campus leader throw their mix on it, kind of what they want to see also that aligns. And so I'm just going to work within that realm and within those restraints to kind of break it down. So obviously we're not gonna be able to see 15 things, right? But just the things that are most important that we should all be seeing. So we're gonna let the org or the district dictate what those forms and kind of checklist are looking like.
Yeah, there's an abundance of templates that you can use when it comes to like collecting low inference data, what type of data to collect. And I think, like you said, like your campus will pretty much, like these are our campus priorities. We're going to shift them. And I think as you become a leader, like you have your own personal look for. It's like, I want to make sure my teachers are on top of XYZ every time. That's going to be the top of my checklist. And if those 3 are checked, I know I can move on to the next category and so on and so forth. So you kind of build it upon the way you coach your teacher. Like I coach my teacher to have a strong voice at the beginning, strong intro. If I don't see that off the bat, I'm going to make a note of it and I'm going to go down my checklist from there. So the organization does provide you with various templates and most of them you can tweak to make your own.
Wonderful. And then the last thing I'm going to ask for you all is creating, let's in a perfect world where we got to create our own template or whatnot, what would you like to see on a form walkthrough that maybe you don't see right now, or that you want to keep the same, that if we were to create one right now, us 3, put our minds together, what would you want to see on there? And yeah, Mr. Laurie, go ahead.
I think some of the things I like seeing when I walk into a classroom, student work, right? I like to see student work. I love to see those great examples of and non-examples, right? So I know that first off, the teacher is showing that she cares, or he or she cares, or the individual is really looking at those exit tickets. And then students can walk by and it's a good reference to go back. A couple other things I like to see is, are we making sure that everybody's kind of engaging? And that can be a couple of different things, right? What I don't want to see is when I go in there, I don't want to see students just there. Even if they're acting well behaved, I want to make sure they're engaging. And engaging isn't always talking and raise their hand, but it's taking notes, right? It's engaged note taking. Are we progressing? And folders. I want to see I just love student work because it lets me know that the teacher is actually deep diving to help all students. And it's not just inclusive to the ones that are always learning, but it's for everybody. So I want to see folders. I want to be able to walk and say, okay, little Johnny here, he's always been an A student, so this is right. Or little Timmy here, I'm seeing assessments of the growth. So that's what I want to see when I walk into a room.
Now, Mr. Laurie, would you, if we're making a template, would you want to have a score system, or would you want to rate them maybe a 1 through 5 system? Would you want to see, a checklist, maybe circle yes, circle no? Would you would you want to see all three, where you can take notes, where the teacher can actually read what your observations are, get a grade, and then maybe a yes or no check system?
Yeah, I think get a grade, and then you're providing you're providing data. I mean, even when you're giving feedback, it shouldn't be feeling based. It should be very evidence based. So 21 students were supposed to be on task. I only seen 15. I saw, 6 other teachers, 6 other students doing this. This is just what I saw. And that's the number. So I think when you bring that real data in there, you write that. So obviously I'm gonna say, well, that wasn't, we can put that's whatever percent out of the 21. And hey, so that grade is a B, or it could be a C, and this is why. So I think where you have like a grading system, and then also the little, maybe 1 or 2 key data points where you're showing evidence to the teacher, because you don't want your teachers to feel like, oh, they're just saying this, or where's that coming from?
Yeah, appreciate you. Same question, Ms. Oliveira. What kind of template would you want to see? What makes it easier for you, so that gives you more time to go ahead and observe the class and jot down right quick of to make memos?
I think what I want to see is like sometimes like the simpler the better. Sometimes we get these obscene forms where it's like collect every single data point, but I think when you have just like maybe a T chart or a 4-box, like at the top, what did students learn, what did they not learn? At the bottom, what was the teacher actions, what was the teacher's inaction? Because at the end of the day, we're looking for student mastery, and if we collect all the things the students learned, like, what, when the teacher asked this question, 10 out of 12 got this answer correct. However, when the teacher asked this question, 2 out of 12 raised their hands. So that gives me a data point, like the kids are really strong in this, they're lacking in this. So then when I think back, what did the teacher do right? The teacher gave clear steps when explaining this math problem. That's why students did, out of 70 some 80% on that first question, the teacher rushed through the last 3 problem sets, and this is why the students did not grasp this information. I think when it's simpler, once you're in that observation and you're seeing what the students are learning, you can start tracking now, like amount of hands raised, and you can pinpoint the little things that you want to start tallying to give that low inference data to the teacher.
Excellent. So we can all agree that, and correct me if I'm wrong. So 1, we definitely know what the lesson of the day is. So that definitely should be on documented. 2, are all the students learning the objective? What did they learn, and basically how did they learn it? 3, what did they not learn? Like you just mentioned. So that's a great one.
Misconception.
Yes. Another thing that I want to add and give me your input. What about teacher glows and grows? As so, to see they want to see a positive. Not everything should be negative, but at the same time, dabble in, hey, well, instead of doing XYZ, you should have done ABC. How do y'all feel about that?
I think that's a really big thing. And I think like that's why when the students do learn, you should track, like, what did the teacher do to get that outcome? And that way you're able to start your feedback with that glow, like, hey, great job getting 80% of the kids to tell me what a subordinating conjunction was. Like, you set it up really smooth. The kids left with clear understanding, like, fantastic job. Where they struggled was with this. Next time, try. And that way it's more conversational, and it's not, like you said, it's not a negative thing. It's just feedback for the sake of student growth.
Right, right. Mr. Laurie, what do you think about a scale, like a rating, how you mentioned, giving a grade? So if we were to have a scale, 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, where you could, where they can the teacher can visually see, out of 30 points, they got 28, and this is where they missed. So some of the things that I would like to see on there, and you can throw any others at me. The teacher discussion, where the teacher's having discussions with the students, where the students having discussion, were they allowed to go ahead and discuss a topic? Were they doing it enough? Were they doing it too little? Engagement in students. I know, Ms. Oliveira, you mentioned that. How was the lecture delivery? I think that's a huge one. Student behavior, were students on task? Teaching visibility, where the teacher, teaching from the desk, were they moving around, were they, shoulder checking, so on and so forth. A big one as a coach is, teacher voice. Were they, loud enough? Could everybody hear? And then cleanliness of the classroom. I think, if there's a lot of distractions around, by giving them a grade on that, we'll let them know, hey, look, there's a little, instead of embarrassing them, give them, letting them know, you could do better. Are there any others that you want to add?
I would say just classroom management. I think that's that going to that kind of learning, but just that classroom management is so key in my opinion, because if you don't have in classroom routines, right? I think it stems from there, but that management of the classroom is going to help you if you can even, because you might have the greatest lesson plan, probably the greatest teacher, right? But if you don't have that classroom management, it's all for naught, and I think those are some things that have to be there. What are some of the expectations around the classroom management? So students aren't just getting up while you're teaching and breaking that concentration of kids that really are trying to focus. Are students interrupting the teacher while they're talking, right? So I think that, and I always let a teacher, hey, this is your classroom. You need to come in with your rules and your policies and your expectations that align with the schools. But these are something that the students have to be taught, just like everything else. And I firmly believe that that might be the most important thing. You cannot get your classroom and what the students expect to be and what they can and can't do. There's no way that great instruction is going to be able to go on. Mm-hmm. So the classroom management piece, to me, in my opinion, is such a good piece to make sure that your teachers have.
Yeah, and I think that ties, Mr. Galvan, with that bullet point, like you mentioned, of like student engagement. Like you can't have the engagement without the management. And I think a way that you can hold your teacher accountable would be like tracking how many times they reset. Like when Mr. Lowry said, like if students are getting up and walking out of your class, what's the teacher doing to address it? If it's like a solid, firm reset of expectations, then like that's something you can rate a teacher on. Like I'll give the teacher a 4 out of 5 for this. It won't be a 5 out of 5 because they had students breaking expectations. However, they reset every time their expectations weren't met. So I think that could tie to your engagement piece.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, I think one that's overlooked a lot of the time is classroom safety. The checklist. Is there a fire extinguisher? Is there an escape route up? Again, is there a clear path, for students to need to escape in case of a drill? So I definitely want to see that as well on a checklist. And then, lastly, just a little box on the bottom right of the paper, just where you can, hey, you did great, or some encouraging words or something, or other that relates to that. Other than that, Mr. Laurie, Ms. Oliveira, I appreciate y'all's time. I really do, creating this walkthrough. I will go ahead and put this on paper and see what we come up with. I'll email it to you and let me know what y'all think. But as for right now, I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for your time. I know y'all are busy, hectic. So again, thank you. I will talk to you all later.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Well.